the big thing is that the president has essentially set a timeline. I mean, he said this would be operational by the time he leaves office, so in about 3 years. But the technology at the heart of this system, the idea of space-based interceptors, is still totally unproven. So, the U.S. is capable of intercepting some ground-launched missiles, and does have some ability to knock down incoming threats. But the threats that he really listed, and the idea that they have of developing this network of interceptors in space to be able to neutralize threats before they even threaten the United States, is completely unproven and a massive gamble.
Hmm.
The other element of it, he said that the system would cost $175 billion overall, but the Congressional Budget Office has estimated that it's going to cost about $542 billion over 20 years to develop and launch the interceptors. So, no surprise that the president would have a lower cost and a truncated timeline, but that's out of whack with what experts and even the Congressional Budget Office say are realistic.
Okay, that's a good point, Nick. I'm also wondering, too, about the risk, or the threats, rather, that this protects the United States from. As Carol and I were talking about, the Star Wars program was during the Reagan administration. That obviously did not end up happening, but it was at a time when the U.S. and the Soviet Union were locked in the Cold War. I'm just wondering about the threats that the U.S. faces right now. And look, nobody can see the threats in the future, but what is out there that he's so concerned about?
Well, I mean, certainly the threats of intercontinental ballistic missiles have not gone away. I mean, Russia retains its arsenal, and another concern is North Korea. But, there is a sort of wing of experts who argue that actually by creating this system, the administration might in some ways actually spur even greater threats, that it would essentially provoke an arms race, or a new arms race, after, like we haven't seen since the Cold War. But then there's China as well. So there are plenty of countries that retain these capabilities, and the question is whether putting or trying to put a system like this in place will only lead them to advance those capabilities, or make it so that they can't be intercepted. So
Mm.
there are all sorts of sort of practical questions around this system, but also strategic ones as well, that you may actually be spurring innovation by your adversaries.
Nick, why is he doing this? Why is he doing this now?
Well, I think, this was the executive order he signed, on January 27th, so a couple days into his second administration. It's a big project. It's a splashy project. It's a little bit like sort of, declaring you're going to put a man on the moon. I mean, that's the sort of level of technological achievement that is going to be required here. And it's also something, I mean, he hasn't explicitly said this is why, but it's something that is going to be a huge boon to defense contractors, amid all the talks about cutting waste and efficiency in the government, and
Hmm.
looking to both increase the defense budget but also cut back on wasteful programs. I mean, this is going to be a mega program with unlimited spending. I mean, it's sort of extraordinary. Even as this has just started to only get off the ground, you're already seeing companies from all over the U.S. saying, "Hey, we have an idea. We have an idea. We have an idea," and it's like
Yeah.
it's just seen as this essentially, cash-a-palooza, where they could just get tons of funding to be able to work on these systems and try to pursue technology that, like I said, doesn't exist yet.
All right. So 3 years from now, we'll see what happens. Nick, I am curious. You understand this stuff. What do you think is going to get done first? The dome or the retrofit on the plane that may come from Qatar?
Well, I mean, it's a great question, because in some ways it shows you how truncated that timeline is. I mean, the conversation around the plane from Qatar, they're saying they're not even going to be able to get that plane retrofitted to be able to go into service before Trump leaves office in 2028. So, you have one plane. That's the timeline is already, they're saying it's unrealistic to have that done. And then you have a whole space-based interceptor system whose technology doesn't even exist, much less contracted, much less deployed. 3 years is an awfully short time frame for that.